It was just past 8:30 on a Wednesday night when my phone buzzed across the kitchen counter. I was rinsing a plate, the house quiet except for the dull hum of the fridge and the ceiling fan ticking like a lazy metronome. Janet was upstairs, already in bed, crossword book open in her lap. The notification lit the screen. Cameron Pierce, our wedding videographer. I hadn't spoken to him since the week after the ceremony, when he sent over a teaser clip of Eleanor and Nate walking down the aisle. Slow motion, soft lighting, the usual sentimental fluff. Nice work. Nothing remarkable. I dried my hands on a dish towel and tapped the message. Please call me as soon as possible. Something's wrong with the footage. Don't tell anyone yet. I read it twice. Then again. No emojis. No punctuation beyond that one period. Just the kind of flat urgency that gets under your skin. I called immediately. It rang twice before it went to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. I texted. What's wrong? No reply. I waited. Standing there in the soft yellow light of the kitchen, surrounded by the clean quiet of a house that's paid off. Family photos on the wall. The scent of dish soap still on my fingers. He responded 2 minutes later. I can't explain over text. Please. Come to my studio tonight. 10:30. I know it's late. This isn't a prank? No. Please. I stared at the screen, then up the stairs. I didn't know Cameron well. He'd come recommended. Mid-30s. Quiet. Precise. But he didn't strike me as unstable. And something about the message felt tight, compressed, like a wire wound too far. I went upstairs, kissed Janet's forehead, told her I needed to drop by the office. Something about a shipping mix-up in the Sacramento store. She muttered something sleepy and turned the page. By 10:15, I was pulling into a dim parking lot off Van Buren. Warehouse-style building, tucked between a shuttered gym and an empty brewery. Cameron's car was already there, parked crooked, passenger door open, interior light on. He was standing in the doorway to his studio, arms folded, phone in hand. When he saw me, he waved me in, without a word. The door clicked shut behind me. And then he said, "You need to see this." The studio was cold. Industrial floors, exposed beams, monitors stacked across one wall, the glow from a single desk lamp, giving everything a low, sickly hue. Cameron moved like someone half awake, gesturing silently toward a chair as he queued up the footage. He didn't explain, just clicked through folders labeled Ceremony Raw, 1, ALT Angles, Master Cam. I sat. The monitor filled with the familiar image of Eleanor in her dress, veil drifting like breath. Nate standing tall and proud at the altar. It was beautiful. Exactly how I remembered it. Then, he froze the frame. "Watch the left aisle," Cameron said. His voice was hollow. He hit play again, slow motion this time. The camera drifted past the guests. A blur of faces. Familiar. Then, just over Eleanor's shoulder, something flickered. A shape. A person. I leaned in. They were standing between two guests. Only, no one reacted. No one turned. No one noticed. Frame by frame, he advanced the footage. The figure tall. Formal clothing, but wrong somehow. Like it didn't fit right. Remained perfectly still. Eyes locked not on the camera, but on my daughter. On the couple. "You see it now?" Cameron whispered. I nodded. Heart in my throat. "Keep watching." He jumped ahead. The moment of the vows. As Eleanor says, "I do." The camera pans slightly. The figure is closer. One row up. Still. Watching. The face. Blurred. Not by movement, just blurred. Like the lens couldn't focus on it. Then, in the next frame, it's gone. Vanished. No one got up. No one moved. Just gone. "This isn't on the photos," Cameron said, pulling up the stills. Same angles, same lighting, no figure. I've reviewed every file. It's only in the video. And it doesn't register on all the cameras. Just this one. He turned to me, eyes sunken, hands trembling slightly. I've seen this once before. 5 years ago. Wedding up north. Groom died a week later. He looked down. Same figure. Same moment. No one believed me then. I need you to believe me now. I did. But I didn't know why yet. Only that the footage felt wrong. Not staged. Not edited. Just wrong. And whatever had stood behind my daughter when she said, "I do," it had not been invited. Cameron pulled a small hard drive from a drawer, handed it to me like it was radioactive. "This is the only other time I've seen it," he said. 2018. Wedding in Prescott. Same setup, outdoor ceremony, 3 cameras, drone footage, everything normal until the vows. He sat back down and opened another file, labeled simply Prescott, Raw. The footage loaded. A young couple, maybe mid-20s, laughing nervously as they held hands beneath an arbor wrapped in white roses. The wind moved gently through the crowd. The officiant began the vows. And then, there it was again. In the background, right side this time. A tall figure. Not blurry, not out of focus, but off. The posture was identical. Too straight. Arms stiff at the sides, unmoving while everything else breathed and shifted. "That's the groom's brother in front of it," Cameron said. He swore no one was behind him. I triple-checked the guest list. No match. Face never fully visible. "What happened?" I asked. "Groom died 4 days later. Sleepwalking incident. Fell from a 3rd-floor balcony at the resort during the honeymoon. Bride swore he'd been talking in his sleep for days before it happened. Said he kept mumbling about someone, waiting." Cameron's eyes met mine. Same figure. Same moment. Like it was part of the ritual. The word ritual landed heavy in my chest. I stood, pacing now. The studio felt smaller, tighter. "You're telling me this thing shows up in weddings and someone ends up dead? Is that what this is?" "I'm telling you," he said slowly, "that whatever's on that footage isn't a glitch. And it isn't a person. Not one anyone saw, anyway. It's something else." I stared at the screen. At the frozen image of the young couple, caught mid-vow. The figure behind them, like a shadow, burned into the frame. Part of me still didn't believe it. Another part, the quieter one I trust more, was already playing through the ceremony again in my head, remembering how cold it had felt in that church, even in late June. "Send me the footage," I said. "All of it." He nodded. I pocketed the drive. As I stepped out into the warm Phoenix night, the air felt wrong. The parking lot was empty. Silent. I drove home fast, headlights tunneling through the dark. One hand clenched tight around the hard drive in my coat pocket, like it might try to move on its own. The next morning, the house felt brittle. Janet made coffee. I told her I had an early inventory call, and stepped into the office. Closed the door. Watched the footage again. Headphones on. The door locked. Every time I froze the frame, the figure was there. Always in the same spot. Always watching. I took stills. Wrote timestamps. Tried to rationalize it, to flatten it into a camera error, or light distortion, or some clever prank. But every angle only made it worse. I couldn't explain it. And I couldn't unsee it. That night, Eleanor and Nate came for dinner. Janet made roast. I watched him closely. Nate. My son-in-law. He smiled, laughed, complimented the food. But something was off. His laugh landed a second too late. His eyes didn't quite track when Eleanor spoke. She touched his hand and he flinched, not visibly. Not enough for her to notice, but I did. I saw him check the window 3 times during dinner, like he was expecting someone to be standing there, watching. After dessert, I walked into the backyard, pretended I was checking the pool filter. I could hear them through the open window. Eleanor washing dishes. Nate still in the dining room, talking. I edged closer. He wasn't on the phone. Not yet, he whispered. Pause. She's still here. Another pause. No. I said I won't. I told you I wouldn't. His voice was tight. Not like someone arguing with a person on the phone, no name, no context. Just presence. Like he was answering something. His tone made the hair on my arms lift. I moved back to the pool, made noise with the skimmer. He stepped outside, moments later, face blank. Everything okay, Mr. Callahan? I nodded. Forced a smile. Everything's fine. He looked past me, over my shoulder, toward the shadowed corner where the garden path curved out of view. Eyes narrowed. You should trim that hedge, he said quietly. Then he turned and went inside. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, listening to the silence of our house, thinking about the voice I'd heard in the video, just under the vows, and the way Nate had said, "She's still here." Like whoever he was talking to had been expecting her to be gone. Something had come through that day. Something neither of us understood. But it had seen them. It had seen us. I waited until Janet left for her bridge group. Then I locked the office door and closed the blinds. Pulled out the headphones, plugged in the external speakers, dragged the ceremony video into my editing software. I'd watched this clip a dozen times now, maybe more, but not like this. Not listening, not really. The moment starts, like any other wedding. Eleanor smiling through tears, Nate holding her hand a little too tightly. The officiant's voice is clear. So is the rustling of silk and chairs creaking, someone coughing in the back row. All normal. Until it isn't. At the 13:42 mark, just after Nate says, "With all that I am," something rides underneath the final syllable. It's faint like wind slipping under a door. A voice. Low. Too low. I boost the gain, filter the background noise. Again. Then again. And it's there. Murmured, deliberate. Almost a sigh. She's mine now. I stop breathing. I rewind. Listen again. Same cadence. Same cold hiss under the vows. Not Nate's voice. Not Eleanor's. Not the officiant's or anyone in the crowd. No human throat made that sound. It doesn't belong. I call Cameron. He picks up on the second ring. You heard it. You heard it too. I tried to tell you, he says, his voice flat. I ran the file through 3 different audio suites. It's embedded. Not dubbed. Not overlay. It's baked into the raw footage. You didn't add it? I ask. Even though I know he didn't. I couldn't fake that if I tried. He's right. It's not just a whisper. It's something behind the whisper. An edge. A pressure. Like something pressing against the inside of the recording, looking for a crack. It's a possession statement, Cameron says quietly. A claim. I close the laptop. Sit still for a long time. She's mine now. Not a metaphor. Not a poetic flourish. A declaration. A theft. Something had taken Eleanor as she stood there, smiling, hand in hand with the man she loved. And none of us saw it. Not then. Not soon enough. It arrived the next morning. Slipped through the mail slot sometime before dawn. I didn't hear it land. Janet found it on the floor after her walk, next to the credenza. No return address, she said, holding it up. You order something weird again? I took it from her without answering. It was matte black, heavy paper, sealed with no stamp, no name, just my address, written in neat, flat letters, ink that bled slightly into the fibers, as if the envelope had been damp when it was written. The paper smelled faintly of copper. Or blood. I told Janet I'd deal with it, and went straight to the office. Inside. One photo. A wide-angle still of the altar from our wedding ceremony. Printed professionally. High gloss. color balanced. Eleanor and Nate in the center, framed by flowers and soft afternoon light. But my eyes went straight to the figure. In the background circled now, in red ink, a thick, angry oval, just behind the last row of chairs, barely visible, but unmistakable. And written beneath it, also in red, were 4 words, scrawled in jagged print. "You let it happen." The words hit harder than I expected. I set the photo down slowly. My hands were shaking. I checked the back blank. I examined the envelope, nothing. No fingerprints. No return label. No clues. Just the photo, the red ink, and the accusation. "You let it happen." I stood. Walked through the house, checking every lock, every window, every curtain, the front door, the garage, the back slider. I turned off the security system and reset it. Turned on every outside light, even though it was broad daylight. Janet asked if something was wrong. I told her it was work, an employee dispute, legal, nonsense. She didn't believe me, but she let it go. I slid the photo into a drawer, locked it. Later that night, I lay awake, watching the hallway from our bedroom, heart pounding at every creak. It wasn't just a voice in the footage anymore. It had stepped into our lives, and it knew where we lived. The estate was called Belgrave Hall Brick and Ivy. Built in 1892. Once a private home, now one of those luxury venues, with a waiting list and a preferred vendor list, as long as a wedding gown train. I'd been there dozens of times, but never alone. Never as a man carrying a black envelope and a suspicion he couldn't name without sounding insane. I told Janet I had a vendor meeting. Drove across town in silence. The photo still burned into my thoughts. The figure, the red ink, the words, "You let it happen." The parking lot was empty. A Tuesday. Wind moved across the courtyard, lifting dead leaves. I rang the service bell and was met by a woman in her 40s, tired eyes, blazer over a dress shirt, clipboard tucked under one arm. "Mr. Callahan," she said, after I introduced myself. "You're Eleanor's father." "That's right. I wanted to ask you about past weddings here." Her expression flickered. Just slightly. "We don't usually release information on clients. I'm not asking for contact info. Just history. Incidents. Anything. Unusual." She paused. "Unusual?" I pulled out the photo. Just showed the altar. Not the circle. Not the writing. "Was this setup typical? Have you done others like it?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. That's our default for summer ceremonies. The arbor, the draping, the oak chairs. It's been the same since 2017. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, "Someone told me there was a death. A groom. Years ago. After a wedding here." She flinched. Didn't deny it. 2018. She said quietly. "They kept it quiet. Bride's family had money. It wasn't our fault. He fell from a balcony," I said. She looked up sharply. I stepped closer. "Was the officiant the same?" A long pause. "Yes. Do you keep guest lists?" "Only seating charts. Archived. In our system." She led me to a back office. Small, utilitarian. Pulled up a file. 2 clicks later, the screen showed a list of names. I scanned them. Eleanor's wedding had nearly identical placement. One guest name even repeated. D. Merrill. I'd assumed he was one of Janet's cousins. The air in the room shifted. Cold. Like the video. Like the figure. "Do you believe in patterns?" I asked her. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I waited until the following Sunday. Told Eleanor we wanted to take them to brunch. Just the 4 of us. She was delighted. Nate looked tired. Pale. I noticed a small cut on his jaw he hadn't shaved over. Red marks just under the collar of his shirt. Too thin to be acne. Too fresh to be random. After the meal, I asked him to help me with something in the garage. A leaking valve. Eleanor kissed his cheek. Don't let him rope you into a home project, she teased. Inside. The door closed. The tone changed. You're not sleeping, I said. He didn't deny it. You're seeing things. Hearing things. Waking up hurt. He swallowed hard. His hands were shaking. How do you know that? Because it's happened before. And I think it's happening again. He sat on the tool bench like someone twice his age, rubbing the back of his neck. 2 nights after the wedding, he said, voice low. I woke up standing in the kitchen. Front door wide open. Barefoot. Freezing. I don't remember getting out of bed. He looked at me. Eyes red. I thought it was stress. But then the bruises started. And the dreams. What dreams? He hesitated. Someone standing at the altar. Not Eleanor. Just something tall. Wrong. Like their skin didn't fit. I say my vows again. But this time, they're not to her. They're to it. He looked like he was going to be sick. It speaks sometimes. In the dream. Last night it said. He paused. It said, you said the words. That means I can come through. The air in the garage tightened. What does that mean? He asked me. Why would it say that? I didn't know how to answer. Not yet. Instead, I lifted his sleeve. 3 finger-shaped bruises circled his forearm. Nate stared at them like they weren't his. I locked the garage door behind us. Don't tell Eleanor, he whispered. I won't, I said. Not yet. But we both knew the truth. Whatever that thing was, it had heard the vows too. And it was listening. Still. I told myself I was checking the footage one last time. Just to reassure myself. Just to confirm that nothing had changed. I knew the timestamps by heart now. Every frame like a landmark on a road I never meant to travel. I loaded the ceremony file onto my desktop, bypassing the editor. Just straight playback. No filters. No enhancements. Just the truth. Or what I thought was the truth. It was subtle at first. The aisle. The chairs. Eleanor smiling. Nate watching her like she was the only thing left worth believing in. But as the camera panned during that slow dolly pull right before the vows, I froze. The figure was no longer in the back row. It was behind Nate. Not close. Not touching. But closer than it had ever been. No blur now. No flicker. Just a shape. Too tall for the angle. Too dark for the light. Shoulders stiff. Hands clenched at its sides. Its head tilted slightly, like it was listening. I paused the frame, rewound to an older copy of the file. One Cameron had sent me 2 weeks earlier. Played the same segment. The figure wasn't there. In the earlier version, it had been near the hedges, barely more than a smudge. Now, it was inside the crowd. The file had changed, but that wasn't possible. Video doesn't evolve. It doesn't rewrite itself while sitting untouched on a hard drive. I played it again. At the moment Nate said, I do, there was a flicker, like a skipped frame. The screen tore for half a second, then settled. The figure's face, still indistinct, still unreadable, had turned. Toward the camera. Why? Why? Toward me. I slammed the laptop shut. The office lights flickered. Just once. A coincidence, probably. Probably. But the air felt heavier again. Thick. As if something was leaning in. And I realized the most terrifying thing wasn't that the video had changed. It was that the moment wasn't over. Not in the footage. Not in our lives. The ceremony, somehow, had never actually ended. I couldn't stay in the house. Janet was asleep. Eleanor was texting pictures of paint swatches for their guest bedroom. Normal things, safe things. But I couldn't pretend anymore. Not with the bruises, the voice, the figure now inches from my daughter's husband, in footage that had no right to be alive. I needed Cameron. Answers. Or at least another witness to the impossible. His studio was across town. tucked behind that shuttered brewery, same as always. I drove with the headlights off until the last block. Pulled into the lot. His car was there. Driver door open. Interior light glowing like it had been abandoned mid-sentence. The front door to the studio hung ajar. Just wide enough to invite. Just wide enough to threaten. Cameron? I stepped inside. No response. The lights were on, humming faintly. Coffee, still steaming on the desk. One monitor flickered. Another showed a paused frame from our ceremony. But no sign of him. No sound, except for the quiet buzz of electronics and the low whine of a hard drive spinning somewhere deeper in the room. I called his name again. Nothing. Then the monitor lit up. Playback began on its own. It wasn't the wedding footage I'd seen. It was something else. Same venue, same arbor, same white chairs, but there were no guests, no music, just wind, and a man standing at the altar. It took me several seconds to understand what I was looking at. It was me. I was standing there, in a suit I didn't recognize, staring forward, hands clasped like I was waiting for something, or someone. No officiant, no couple. Just me and a camera watching me from somewhere unseen. Then I blinked. Not on the screen in real life. And on the monitor, I blinked back. I stepped backward. The air shifted again, heavier than before. The kind of weight that didn't come from atmosphere. I turned to leave, but the door had closed behind me, locked, and from the monitor, my own voice, raspy, distant, drained, echoed out through the speakers. You said the words. Then the screen went black, and the studio went silent. This story was brutal, but this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.